Whales, like this beautiful humpback, are some of the most incredible animals on the planet. Some of these marine mammals reach colossal sizes, and they are true kings of the ocean. They are remarkable not only for their size. It is known that whales can dive underwater for 222 minutes. Compared to this, our record of 24 minutes pales in comparison. Sperm whales, for example, can dive to a depth of 2,000 meters, while the human record for diving is only 332 meters. But people do this only with the help of scuba gear and years of training. So in terms of ocean life, whales definitely outperform us, and since they face few threats, the ocean is a very comfortable home for these giants. But almost 2,000 whales and dolphins are stranded on the beach each year, unfortunately. Many of them die, unable to survive outside of the water. But this seems senseless. Why does this happen so often? What else is hidden in the depths of the ocean that makes these animals surface? If you want to find out, put on your goggles and hold your breath, because we're diving into this mystery. So first let's understand. Whales are a cetacean order of mammals that are fully adapted to life in the water, like natural submarines. Whales are a cetacean order of mammals that are fully adapted to life in the water, like natural submarines. They have streamlined bodies, ideal for swimming, flippers to help them turn, and powerful tails that push them forward. However, due to all these features, beaching becomes a death sentence for the whale. Their bodies are not supported by the buoyancy of the water, so they get crushed under their own weight, and deadly toxins accumulate in a whale's bloodstream due to limited circulation. Whales also have a thick layer of blubber, sometimes up to 28 centimeters thick, which keeps them warm in the cold depths where temperatures can drop to -4 degrees Celsius, but on land this blubber becomes a warm coat that causes them to quickly overheat. That's why rescuers constantly pour water over them to cool them down. And although whales can breathe on land, since they are mammals like us, if water from the tide falls into their blowhole, they can suffocate. Beaching is a terrible fate for whales, and it seems like they try to avoid it, but in fact, it's happening more and more often. Since the 90s, the number of reports of cetacean strandings has increased significantly, and mass strandings are becoming a surprisingly common occurrence, causing whales to come out of the ocean. Maybe they're trying to return to land. Strange as it may seem, this idea is not as crazy as it seems. Whales have only lived in the ocean for the last 40 million years. Before that, they really were land dwellers. Have you ever wondered why whales' tails move up and down, while sharks and other fish move from side to side? It's because whales' vertebrates were originally meant for walking. Yes, their spine is needed for lifting and lowering on land. They need it for swaying in the water. The first whale ancestors evolved more than 50 million years ago. These were pachycetids. However, they barely resemble modern whales. I think they look like strange dogs, though everyone in the park would avoid you if you walked such a dog because they had bodies about 2 meters long, thick necks, and sturdy tails. Their long, pointed snouts and large teeth were adapted for meat. Their only similarity to modern whales is a separate bony network in their inner ear, a unique biological feature that allows whales to hear well underwater. However, pachycetids did not remain on land for long. Within 5 million years their descendants, ambulocetids, began to lead a more aquatic lifestyle. They had short legs with broad and flat feet that served as paddles, and long muscular tails that looked like a hippo on a diet. This makes sense, as the closest relatives of whales today are hippos. However, the prehistoric ancestors of whales, called pachycetids, were even more streamlined and resembled a cross between an otter and an anteater. At first glance, it seems like evolution took a wrong turn somewhere. But despite their resemblance to a ferret, pachycetids were a key step in the evolution of whales. Their nostrils were not located at the tip of their snouts. Thus began the development of the blowhole on the top of the whale's head, and creatures resembling modern whales appeared around 41 to 33 million years ago during the Basilosaurid period. At that time, their skeletons evolved from land-based animals to long-tailed swimmers. However, they still had small legs, like T-Rex arms, with hind limbs that served no function and likely later became embedded in their bodies. Even some modern whales have tiny legs inside their body cavity. Say hello to the past. Basilosaurids lived in the ocean thanks to the abundance of food. But this did not mean that they suddenly had dinosaurs. They had lungs and breathed air like other mammals. But they had to learn how to hold their breath. Although they could surface and breathe when they were conscious, they had to sleep. Therefore, they learned to sleep underwater using two methods, either by resting quietly in the water in vertical or horizontal positions, or by slowly swimming while sleeping next to other animals. Many modern species, such as sperm whales, sleep this way. These giants rest vertically less than 7% of the day, staying close to the surface to take a breath. It's clearly not very easy, but it shows how far evolution can go to keep animals close to a good food source. At this stage of basilosaurid evolution, they began to increase in size. They could reach 21 meters in length, while their descendants today, such as blue whales, can grow up to 34 meters and weigh 219 tons. It is claimed that their heart is the same size and weight as a Volkswagen Beetle 4, which is 2 meters long. But in reality, it is 2 meters long and a meter wide, and weighs 180 kilograms. Like an average motorcycle, it is still impressive. Moreover, blue whales are the largest animals in history, larger than the largest dinosaurs. Whales literally outgrew the ability to live on land. Why are they being washed up on the shore? Was living in the ocean for millions of years really that terrible? Given the increase in the number of cases, it seems that something is forcing them to swim to land. Usually, a beached whale is old, sick, or injured and too weak to swim at depth, and it recovers in shallow water. However, tides come and go quickly and timely. At low tide, the whale suddenly remains on the shore. It is a very dangerous mistake for whales in the water. However, even healthy whales sometimes have difficulty navigating the ocean. Some coasts are real deadly traps, such as the Prostia Spit, a 26-kilometer sandy stretch on South Island, New Zealand. Mass strandings occurred as early as March 22, when 31 black dolphins were 3 kilometers from the shore and died despite rescue efforts. Mass incidents are common among social species such as black and beaked dolphins. Due to the calls of the stranded individual, the entire pod gathers in dangerously shallow water, unwilling to leave a family member in distress. However, they themselves often end up on the shore. It's terrible. In the case where rescuers returned 5 dolphins to the water, 2 of them were later stranded again. Why can't they avoid this? Scientists believe that the spit creates a shallow area with kilometers of sandbanks. Swimming in these shallows confuses the whale's navigation system, as their location works at greater depths. Lost. Here are the great whales, caught in the tide, and they are washed up on the shore. There have been 11 incidents on the spit alone in the past 15 years. However, the worst incident occurred in February of 2017, when 700 dolphins were stranded, and as a result, 250 of them died on the spit. This area needs to be marked with a cross on maps of whales and dolphins, as it is almost impossible to survive there. Perhaps this is the reason why whales are being washed out of the ocean. It's difficult to navigate. I myself am constantly lost on the highway, even with GPS. However, not all whales are lost. Some of them have recently started to swim away from the ocean. For example, deep water species, which were rarely seen until the 1960s, beaked whales, some of the most mysterious, as they live in very deep waters and regularly dive to 2,000 meters, hunting for squid. For many years, they were not seen by scientists, but now they are also being washed up on the shore. From 1995 to 2020, 35 beaked whales were stranded. In these areas, in Alaska, there has also been an increase in cases of their stranding on the shores of Guam. From 2007 to 19, to find out the cause of this, we need to dive deep. In 1933, the U.S. Navy began using sonar on ships. It detects underwater objects by emitting sound pulses and measuring the sound waves that bounce back. But since then, the ocean has become too loud. In particular, a type called mid-frequency active sonar, which the U.S. Navy uses to search for submarines, emits a deafeningly piercing sound, which I will turn on now. If you're wearing headphones, I suggest you take them off. The sound is so loud that divers felt it vibrating through them. And now imagine what it's like for whales with their exceptional hearing. These animals can detect sounds with frequencies up to 200 kHz, while humans can only hear sounds up to 20 kHz. Unfortunately, beaked whales live where many sonar tests are conducted, sometimes for 10 hours at a time. Plus, sound travels faster underwater, which is denser than air. As a result, sound waves reach whales' ears with enormous energy, causing more intense bursts that damage their ears. This not only makes it difficult to navigate. Due to ear damage, whales cannot dive to hunt because they cannot equalize the pressure in their ears without excruciating pain. Weakened and disoriented, they drift into shallow waters and end up stranded on shore. From 1960 to 2004, there were 121 mass strandings of entire whales. Many of the incidents were recorded in areas where US Navy and NATO exercises were and are being conducted. And while they would probably like to call it a coincidence, research has shown a link between military exercises using sonar and mass strandings of beaked whales. In general, whales no longer want to live in the ocean because humans have turned it into a deafening nightmare. Humans have become the problem, but that's not surprising. But while some have made the ocean horribly noisy, there are always other people willing to help these giants safely return to the water. Rescuers and beachgoers helped place black dolphins in St. Simons, Georgia in 2019. And rescuers, with ropes and an excavator, pulled a humpback whale stranded on a Brazilian beach back into the ocean in 2017. If only other people with equipment could help, such as the US Navy or NATO. Yes, fortunately, you don't need sonar to find the like and subscribe buttons. Click on them if you support whales. But it's not just whales who are trying. Land fish too. It's terrible, but about 14 million tons of plastic are dumped into the oceans every year, and at the same time, they are getting warmer due to climate change. Therefore, living in the ocean is becoming more difficult every year. Maybe that's why some fish have decided to just leave, like mudskippers, fish that spend up to 90% of their time on land. It seems impossible. After all, everyone knows that fish can only breathe in water because of how they obtain oxygen through their gills. But mudskippers have learned to inhale oxygen through their skin, and some individuals can spend up to 2 days on land as long as their skin stays moist. Mudskippers can also breathe through an air bubble in their gills. So they have many options, and they not only walk but also jump up to 60 centimeters and climb trees with low branches. But don't worry, mudskippers won't get into your treehouse unless you live in the humid areas of Madagascar and southeastern parts where they live. Their ability to jump on land is due to special chest fins that are shaped like shoulder joints resembling arms. The fins help them move, especially in muddy tidal flats, where there are plenty of small plants and animals, an excellent place to feed. But despite how it looks, mudskippers didn't learn to walk overnight. The ability emerged millions of years ago during evolution. But even scarier than this are the huge fish that have recently learned to walk. Snakeheads are predators that eat almost anything in their path. It is known that they eat all kinds of prey, including birds, both in water and on land. This is an invasive species in the US that destroys the ecosystem. Therefore, snakeheads are allowed to be exterminated en masse. Georgia. These fish are native to Asia and Africa, but they have been sold in pet stores and markets for the past 20 years, alive. Since then, they have multiplied and begun to terrorize ecosystems in the United States because they eat anything from crustaceans to mammals. Adult snakeheads grow up to a meter long and can eat prey up to 33% of their size, and these fish are not limited to water. If they are very hungry, they can crawl onto land. Wriggling with their slippery bodies, they move on land and can live up to 4 days outside of water. Snakeheads can breathe oxygen through an air bladder similar to a lung, and young individuals can crawl long distances. However, adults are too round and cannot stray far, but at least these fish have something to hold on to. But as if that wasn't enough, snakeheads are not the only fish that have started crawling out of the water. Be careful at tidal pools in Australia, because there may be sharks crawling around, specifically, tasseled wobbegongs, meter-long fish that can move their pectoral and pelvic fins like legs and crawl along the bottom of the water. They mainly eat shrimp and crabs. However, tidal pools are not the best habitat, because after the tide goes out, marine creatures use up all the oxygen that remains in the water. Many fish cannot survive in such suffocating conditions, but they say sharks have the ability to survive for up to 3 hours in water with less than 5% oxygen without consequences by increasing blood flow to the brain and shutting down non-essential functions. It's an amazing ability that allows them to survive, including out of water. They often crawl out of one body of water and crawl on rocks to another for hunting. However, even underwater, these sharks clearly prefer to walk rather than swim. Yes, the walking shark. I hope they don't come up with any ideas for great white cousins. Fish in the sky. This bird is a plane, this fish. Stop. While other fish are trying to crawl on beaches and tidal flats, flying fish have literally learned to fly. They don't flap their fins like birds, but instead, like a plane, they need to build up speed with an accelerated run, but they don't have jet engines. And so they quickly gain speed, swimming underwater and thus accelerating up to 70 kilometers per hour. For comparison, Olympic swimming champion Michael Phelps can only accelerate in water up to 8 kilometers per hour. Flying fish use this incredible speed to their advantage, jumping out of the water to a height of up to 6 meters above the waves. Their 4 wing-like fins allow them to glide through the air for up to 200 meters at a time. This is almost the same as the length of 2 football fields, but flying fish can jump even further. When they approach the surface of the water, they wave with us and use the airflow from the waves to extend their flight to 400 meters. And this is already the length of 3.5 football fields. But flying fish do not make a touchdown on the other end, they simply jump back into the water. So why did these fish want to get out of the ocean so badly that they grew wings? This ability helps them avoid predators. They usually grow up to 30 centimeters in length and are hunted by large and fast mackerel, tuna, swordfish, and marlins. Unable to catch flying fish, they learn to take off over the waves, where they are inaccessible. However, this trick has its drawbacks, as birds also hunt flying fish. And fishermen also use them as bait for tuna. There is no salvation in the water or in the air. It seems that a couple more million years, and these fish will grow legs and start running to the shore. Falling birds. It was an ordinary day in the Cuauhtémoc neighborhood of Mexico City. Residents had just woken up and made their morning coffee. But when they stepped outside, they saw something terrible and unpleasant. The street was filled with the remains of hundreds of yellow-headed carcasses. What happened? The birds suddenly forgot how to fly and fell straight from the sky. People were puzzled until they saw a recording from a camera on one of the buildings, which showed the incident. But what the camera captured shocked the residents. The flock didn't fall, but for some reason, flew into the ground. Most of the birds were able to fly away, but some died from the impact. Upon closer inspection, it seems that some unknown force unexpectedly brought down hundreds of carcasses. This could have happened for one of 2 reasons. Perhaps the unlucky flock became the victim of a powerful shift in the wind, a sharp drop in air pressure when hot air rises and displaces cold air that descends with a gust of wind. Shifts can be so strong that they even cause turbulence. So it's possible that the poor carcasses were literally swept off the sky. However, there is a second explanation from other experts. They suggested that the flock flew away because a low-diving predatory bird, such as a hawk or eagle. The hawk could dive on the carcasses, causing them to unite and start circling closely. This maneuver does not allow the predator to choose one victim from the flock, which also confuses the size and unpredictable movements, as in this video, where a flock of starlings is trying to escape from a hawk. However, in this case, when the hawk rushed at the flock on the street, they panicked and rushed forward to save themselves. In such a tightly packed flock, birds copy the movements of their comrades ahead in order to move in a wave-like manner without colliding with others. And although this allows them to synchronize their flight, they cannot look around. As a result, many birds probably could not see the approaching ground, blinded by the rest of the flock. But individuals behind continued to drive the flock forward, not allowing the birds to fly away from the sidewalk in time. A similar case occurred in North Wales in the 20th year, when over 200 dead starlings were found on a 100-meter stretch of road near the town of Anglesey. The birds had injuries consistent with blunt force trauma. Like the dead fish, the starlings apparently tried to avoid a predator, but did not realize they were dangerously close to the road. Apparently, the air can be just as dangerous for these birds as the ground. But speaking of birds that don't belong in the sky, there are pigeons that clearly lead in this regard, because they have forgotten how to fly altogether. Known as tumblers, they sometimes flap their wings and sometimes fall freely. However, they regain control after a few seconds. The reason for this strange flight lies in genetics. Owners intentionally breed such pigeons to have these unusual traits. Birds that perform somersaults are called rollers. They are admired by fans of acrobatic pigeons. The most extreme version of somersaulting is demonstrated by the parlor breed. Due to intensive breeding, these pigeons can no longer fly at all. Instead, they somersault on the ground, and this continues until the bird becomes exhausted and stops trying to take off. Competitions are held between them, and the bird that can somersault the farthest wins. I think this is a cruel hobby. Let's not forget about the injuries that birds sustain as they try to correct their movements. Perhaps the breeder just needs to observe the birds. Which animals that have left their natural habitat have interested you the most, and have you seen an animal trying to live where it shouldn't? Share in the comments under the video. Thank you for watching.